fear me.
That's who you are, Zuko. Someone who keeps fighting even though it's hard.
You think I'm a monster?
No, I love you, Azula.
Is Ursa a bad mother? This has become a point of contention in the fan base over the years, as everyone feels differently on Ursa's character. You'll often hear takes like, Ursa is a bad mom because she chose to forget her children, or Ursa only cared about Zuko. And although I agree with some of those takes, I think Ursa deserves more than to be dismissed as bad because of her mistakes in the past. So today, we will take a deep dive into the mother, the wife, and the thespian, Princess Ursa. Ursa is the granddaughter of Avatar Roku, born of his daughter, Rena. Raised in a theater town, Ursa was involved in the thespian arts from a young age, and it was there that she met the love of her life, Ikem. Ursa and Ikem had slowly grown close over their childhood and adolescence, being two of the most notable actors in Hira. They were destined to be happily married and live an incredible life together on stage, but the royal family would see otherwise. In order to increase the power and purity of his descendants, Fire Lord Azula traced Avatar Roku's lineage to Hira and to Ursa, whom he believed would be the perfect bride for his son, Prince Ozai. Ursa did not want to go, as she was already in love with Ikem, but the Fire Lord and Fire Prince weren't about to leave empty-handed. So Ursa was forced not only to leave her home and her life behind, but to break Ikem's heart so that he wouldn't be harmed or killed by the royal family. Later, during the royal wedding, we see that Ozai forces her to cut off communication with her parents also. He declares that she must give up her old life and submit all of herself to the royal family and to himself. Ursa had truly lost everything. So with all of this being established, let's examine Ursa's behavior as a mother. When Zuko was born, he lacked a spark in his eyes that indicates a powerful bender. Ozai was ready to discard Zuko on the spot just for that, but Ursa stood up to him and saved his life for the first of several times to come. Not long after, Ursa has another child with Ozai, Azula. Azula had the spark for powerful bender from birth, and thus she quickly became Ozai's favorite. Favoritism is nothing new with the royal family, and Ursa also, perhaps without even meaning to, plays right into it. Azula takes after Ozai, being ruthless, manipulative, and powerful. Zuko takes after Ursa, being more gentle, thoughtful, and expressive. Ozai didn't get the powerful bender that he expected, nor did he manage to keep as strong a hold on Ursa as he'd like. She's clever enough to trick him into revealing he spies on the letters she writes home. One of them was specifically crafted to bother Ozai personally, a letter in which she supposedly reveals that Zuko is not Ozai's son, but Ikem's. Along with other psychotic behavior, such as sending an assassin after Ikem, Ozai begins to treat Zuko much worse than usual after this whole debacle to punish Ursa for not fully submitting to him. He never liked Zuko anyway, but now he is the target of Ozai's wrath. He takes any opportunity to belittle or berate Zuko, going as far as to tell him that Azula was born lucky, and that he was lucky to be born. And who was there to defend him? Who is the only person willing to stand up to Ozai for his sake? Ursa. I understand that many fans believe that Ursa was playing favorites, and I'm not trying to say that she wasn't, but she was literally the only thing shielding Zuko from Ozai's wrath. It was partially her fault that Ozai hated Zuko as much as he did, so she probably saw it as imperative that she always keep him safe. Add to that, we see that Zuko is slower to learn than Azula and much more sensitive. He's a mama's boy, and they have a really strong bond. So when Cousin Luten is pronounced dead, and Ozai sees a golden opportunity to usurp Iroh's birthright, it's no wonder Ursa takes things to the next level. To punish Ozai for his treachery, Azula orders him to kill Zuko, which he is more than willing to do, but Ursa will have none of it. She does what any good mother would do, and prioritizes Zuko's life over her own happiness and safety by brewing a poison to kill Azula and getting Ozai the throne. This action was incredibly treasonous and immoral, but Ursa was willing to go to any length to save her son, being banished in the process. Years later, we would see the weight of her absence firsthand as Ozai brutally scarred Zuko for something as frivolous as talking out of turn, and banishes him on the fool's errand of capturing the Avatar to restore his honor. Now it's time to discuss the elephant in the room, Azula. Azula is one of the biggest points of contention people have when judging Ursa's role as a mother. It's not uncommon to hear that Ursa neglected Azula or that she didn't love her as much. Hell, even Azula feels that way. But is this a fair criticism? Well, it's obvious that Azula is getting most of her quote-unquote parenting from Ozai. She takes after him very closely, and he is definitely rewarding her negative behavior. Ursa is shown to be greatly confused by Azula's behavior. She often gets onto her case for things she shouldn't say or do. For instance, Ursa snaps at Azula for hinting that Azula is very old and will likely die very soon.
Someone will probably end up taking his place soon.
Young lady, not another word.
Also, she takes Azula for a stern talk after she teases Zuko about Ozai's plan to murder him.
What is going on here?
I don't know.
It's time for a talk.
Although Ursa's parenting isn't having much of an effect on Azula, she still acts the most like a child when in her mother's presence. Despite Ozai clearly dominating the power dynamic when it comes to parenting, Ursa still maintains somewhat of a presence. So we've established that Ursa does try to be a mother to Azula, but what is she doing wrong? Well, Ursa does have a tendency to focus on Zuko more than Azula, even when Ozai is not present. In Zuko's flashbacks in Book 2, we see multiple times where Ursa and him are together without Azula being present. And in the comic, The Search, we see that even when Azula and Zuko are both with their mother, Azula is getting less attention and trailing behind them. In fact, she doesn't quite get the attention that she needs until she begins to act out. Furthermore, Ursa also has a bad track record of saying hurtful things to or about Azula within her earshot. In a flashback, we hear Ursa say, "What is wrong with that child?" right in front of Azula.
What is wrong with that child?
Even if you agree with Ursa, these are still some pretty harsh things to say to or about your own daughter. Ursa really did fail to see the humanity in Azula as she did with Zuko, so she heavily contributed to Azula falling down Ozai's path through neglect. So fragmented was Azula's mind because of this, that whenever she is in distress, we see that she disassociates and sees visions of her mother saying things that confuse her, like, "I love you." Ursa did a bad job showing Azula that she was loved, and Ozai never bothered to love Azula in the first place, only using her to further his own goals. When it comes to Azula, even though Ursa did make some effort there, I'm going to have to say that she was a bad mom in her case. After Ursa was banished, she ended up returning to her hometown of Hira'ah. She was struggling to come to terms with the fact that she'd never see her children again. As Ozai stated, they'd be free from harm only if she never returned. This grief led Ursa to doing some pretty controversial things. Things that I'm very conflicted on how to feel about. She manages to find and rekindle the flame she had with Ikem, who now looks completely different and goes by the name Norin. He reveals that this is because he couldn't go on living after Ursa left, and stumbled into a spiritual forest, meeting the powerful spirit, the Mother of Faces. The Mother of Faces offered Ikem a chance to start over in life by offering him a new identity. Ursa decides to do the same, relinquishing the baggage of her previous life. However, the caveat of this action is that she will willingly forget her own children, Zuko and Azula. This is the point where most fans lose sympathy for Ursa, and I can't really defend this action either. Yes, she was forcibly taken away from her home, forced to marry Ozai, and never see her friends, lover, or family ever again. None of that was fair to her, and I can understand how she'd want to forget about it. But any good mother would draw the line at their children. Their memory, even if you never get to see them again, should be more than enough. Later, during the events of the search, we see that Ursa had another daughter with Ikem. Her name is Kiyi, and she seems to have turned out just fine, so Ursa has done a fine job here. When her and Azula meet face to face again, Ursa does have the decency to admit that she made some mistakes, and that she didn't love Azula as much as she should have. I think these actions indicate that Ursa has grown a bit, and is worthy to be forgiven. Zuko clearly does forgive Ursa, pretty much straight away. But Azula struggles a lot more with her feelings on her mother. Chronic visions of Ursa are what caused Azula's mental breakdown, and she continued to be haunted by them for years, up until the events of Smoke and Shadow. As of now, Azula's feelings on Ursa have been left open-ended, but hopefully Azula's solo comic will shed some light on this dark chapter of her life. I believe that Ursa was a very flawed mother. However, there are many caveats. 1. She did do a good job raising Zuko and Kiyi. 2. She went to the furthest lengths imaginable to save Zuko's life, committing regicide. And 3. She did try to some extent with Azula, and admitted that she was wrong. I can't in good faith dismiss Ursa as just a bad mom, but she's far from being a perfect mom. She does have one huge slight against her, that being deliberately making the choice to forget her own children. I can't overlook that, and if someone believes that makes her a bad mom, I can hardly defend it. Maybe in the real world, the harsh circumstances Ursa was forced to bear are a bit unrealistic, but moms who abandon their children, whether mentally or physically, are regarded as bad mothers. But in my opinion, Ursa is just a very misunderstood, unlucky, and deeply imperfect mother, which is a bit more complicated than just good or bad. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe so that I can make more like it. Support my $1 Patreon if you're feeling extra generous, and be very excited as I begin full production of the big Part 2 Azula video right after this one. Dreaded Patrick, out.